to be the man, you gotta beat the man right here.
Is the future of wrestling. You can call this the new world order of wrestling, brother.
Nobody is on my level. Everything I touch turns to gold.
Believe it or not, whether you like it or don't like it, learn to love it, because you have to listen to Wrestling is Real. It is the best thing going today. Woo!
And welcome to a very special edition of the Wrestling Is Real podcast. I'm here tonight, Friday night, episode 744, because Vince McMahon has made his way back into the company. But I don't agree with what my fellow podcast wrestling brethren. I don't agree with the fans out there that are either on wrestling Twitter or wrestling TikTok or whatever. I don't agree that Vince McMahon is coming back in for the sake of eventually trying to get control of creative again and starting to have a hand in the day-to-day pencil. The booking of wrestlers and the booking of Royal Rumble, WrestleMania in general. And everyone out there in the wrestling community, the IWC, wants to insist, oh, we can't trust Vince McMahon. We can't trust he's not going to come back here and just go and screw things up. You know, it irks me because maybe just people don't understand in the business of wrestling right now why he would be coming back in the capacity he's going to be coming back, and only the capacity he's going to be coming back. And second, to understand that there's too many implications that could happen to where if he did try to come back in some full-time capacity, you're telling me the people at the Wall Street Journal, the SEC, you're telling me that the investigations that were being done and all the allegations, there are people that do not want him to be in there day to day. They can't take away his shares, but they can keep him away from being in the company in such a capacity. Now, as board of directors, it's a limited capacity because of the fact of what he's trying to do here. There's an end goal to this. And I really I want to be able to express this. This is what this program has been for, to have a different opinion, because I know that I don't believe it. You're not going to be able to convince me otherwise. Because this is that delusional wrestling mindset that everything is storyline, that everyone just thinks that, real life and business can't come into real reality. There's just some reason that people just don't think it can happen. But I can tell you that because of the fact he's back, because of the fact that he's going to come back in for these broadcast deals, if it's not the broadcasting rights, the point is it could be one of two things. It could be the broadcasting rights that eventually are going to be formulated and put together because of what's happening. But then the other thing is that you're going to see that there is even a better chance, because of the way streaming is right now, the way these big media corporations are operating right now, there's a very good chance that WWE, they might not be able to go ahead and get, or might not have to go ahead and offer to get the rights deal with a company and continue to operate themselves, when Vince McMahon could just take a nice big payout with the valuation of the company being $5.4 billion and getting a $6 to $7 billion sale, cash out, peace out. His company will have been sold. He will have done what he did, and he's off and running. He can, when he passes away, there's a trust. He's going to entrust that the company is being handled by his family, which he has Stephanie and Paul, Triple H and others in there. So he'll have that in place. And maybe there's something else he wants to continue doing, right? Because remember, he was going to go back to the XFL. There was a time he was going to step away and not be so involved, right? That's part of the reason where, 2019, where we had Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman handling as executive directors, with Vince offering the ultimate oversight over the major storylines and major premium live events. So I'm going to take time here to explain. We're going to go through what has been said publicly. But then I also want to go ahead and take the point and get everybody's mindset off of the idea that, man, he's going to come back and take creative. He's going to bury people. There's going to be more firings and all this. I'm like, man, stop it. The timing's off. Because if the timing was to be for him to come back and do creative again, he would have been around well before Royal Rumble. Like, just come back in now and just try to take things in. And you're telling me that guy doesn't have some kind of pull still to still kind of persuade and maybe make some advisements to Triple H? I mean, regardless, the plan for him to make his approach back into the company in some capacity, of all the press releases, of all the statements being made out there, his PR team, his legal team, Vince McMahon has come in with a very good approach. I mean, very good approach. So somebody's obviously advising him on how to get back into this mix in the best possible way. And also transparency across the board. Now, look, we talked a lot about all the allegations. These were never taken to court, civil or criminal. Am I right? I don't know about statute of limitations, but let me just make this clear. They were allegations, and he has never been charged. I'm pretty sure this guy's done some pretty foul shit in his time, in his tenure over 40 years as the chairman and the founder of this company. No doubt about it. We know this guy is not a saint. He is not, he is not above ground, not above reproach. He can totally be criticized for a lot of reasons. But there's something to be said about Vince McMahon coming back because he is a deal maker. Nick Khan can go ahead and make deals all he wants, but still, everybody associates World Wrestling Entertainment. When it comes to the big media conglomerates, they want Vince at the table. Whether you like it or you don't like it, that's just the way it is. If they're going to come back to the table, just like what they did in 2016, what was it? 2020 or like 2019, whatever. When the new deals came into play, new 5-year deals, that's right. So it was 2019. When those 5-year deals came into play, Vince McMahon has been there for all those negotiations. And I'm sure Nick Khan would probably do a pretty good job of getting a good valuation and getting some money back. Where you see that, college football had their rights deals come through. We saw that the NFL had their rights deals kind of make things turn around. I mean, listen, a lot of things have been changed around. That's fine. But you got to look at the fact that in the whole look of everything now with what they're doing, it is incumbent upon the company to be able to go ahead and pull off something really good here. Because what he's doing, which is what I always talk about with this show, is that if something that WWE does is beneficial to them, it trickles down to the other companies. If WWE and their value is so hot, the reason AEW could exist, let's just be honest here, the reason AEW could come in and coexist and get a deal from Warner Brothers Warner Brothers, what it was, or Turner, and to be able to get back into wrestling again and having another wrestling company come in. And the fact that Fight Network / Access TV, Anthem, that they want to invest in a wrestling company. It's because of the fact that WWE is able to go and do what they can do. Because of their success. Because of their footprint. Their global footprint on the entire wrestling community. Because wrestling matters because of them. And then everybody else can feed from the trough. For what's left over. Be the second, third, fourth, fifth companies out there. Which is great. The fact that New Japan can expand into North America. The fact that CMLL or AAA can expand into North America is because of WWE. There's no question about that. in North America, this company is doing what it needs. It is making the door open for all these other wrestling companies to thrive. Competition, or at least having that major offset. It's like, listen, it's just like fast food. You have your competitors underneath. If McDonald's wasn't so damn successful, then you wouldn't have the success of a Chick-fil-A, a Burger King, a Sonic, Arby's, or whatever. The thing is, there's always companies that are on the very top, and there are others that might not be in the same argument or at the same level, but there are always those on the other level that can be successful as a number 2, as a number 3, as we can see right now. That's the whole point. There's still an interest in wrestling, and if the fact that one major company, look at what WWE did in the last round of broadcasting rights, is tremendous. 5-year deal with Peacock for the WWE network to be reinstituted, reincorporated into Peacock to bring more subscribers into that platform. Smart move. NBC Universal getting Monday Night Raw and consistently still getting a show that is top 5 to top 10 most watched cable show that's not news every Monday night. They still control that time slot, 8 to 11 o'clock at night. And Tuesday nights, they have a strong foothold with NXT. And with Fox, they're getting the young demographic. Listen, they're not going to go and compete with CBS or ABC in some cases with what they're offering. But it's a 2-hour slot. It's their Friday primetime lineup. It helps to bolster their sports programming that's going to be promoted leading up to, plus any other advertising like movies or other younger-minded products. It works. And so whatever conversations there were about, the lack of advertising for Fox, I don't know if that's true. But the ratings have never been diminished to a certain point. And also, what else is there that's actually going to, give some good returns on broadcast TV and cable when everything is streaming? And WWE, for the most part, also is one of the largest global entertainment outlets anywhere. They can go to just about anywhere in the world and draw an audience. And they're able to. And so there's a couple of things we have to look at that explain why it's happening. So the main point here is that Vince McMahon, initially, it will be the reason everybody's going to get together at the table and start negotiating is to renew the rights, the broadcasting rights for WWE programming for these 3 shows for 7 hours of programming each week. And who's going to take advantage of that? Because that programming we always see when the show moved the spike, audience followed along. That's how it works. So we can see changes that go across. And USA also having a reason for having that show for so long. Plus the reputation that WWE has in network television. From Saturday night's main event on NBC for years, it always pulled good ratings when they were not running Saturday Night Live, to SmackDown on UPN, then My Network TV, and then returning back over to Fox. Because they still bring numbers. I mean, what else is there that Fox can put out there that can really pull some numbers out there? Like, it's difficult. It's a live sport. It might be contrived. It might be predetermined, but still, people are watching that show, and it has room to grow. Like right now, it's not even at its best. It's about as good as it can get. But that's also because of the constant argument we always have about how this company could do better. We always talk about that. And so we're here now, and the other factor, and I'm going to take from a Deadline article that came out when the discussion was Vince McMahon was taking steps to return. And this was on Wednesday. And this is what I brought up on the podcast on Wednesday night. This is something you got to keep in mind, because this quote right here says everything. Now, as we know, I'm going to make this again. Monday Night Raw NXT on NBC Universal's USA Network. Friday Night SmackDown on Fox. They have 5-year deals now that end in 2024. Peacock absorbed the WWE Network in 2021. Streaming rights are continuing to 2026. Once again, this quote says everything, and I will repeat it once again. The strategic thinking about a larger merger and acquisition transaction. The fact that WWE could be considered in, the world of business. You can either go in with another company and merge with another company, or be acquired by another company. Therefore, a larger merger and acquisition transaction instead of spending $600 to $700 million on WWE rights. So with all these different networks, now NFL, there's not going to be anyone that's going to be able to, NFL and the evaluation of the NFL or the NBA, these big sports leagues, you can't get down. UFC is an example where, you could get a broadcast partner to come in and probably buy it all out. Now, what's happening is the streaming services, we're talking about HBO Max, Peacock, Disney Plus, Apple TV, Amazon Prime, all of these. They're putting in a lot of money right now for content, as we know. But the thing is, it's the scripted content that's not going to get so much money anymore. You're talking about Netflix and the others spending tens of billions of dollars each year on content. And then we see how many different shows that are coming up on Netflix or other places. And you see shows that come and go. You might get shows that might last for maybe a season or less. But there's a lot of shows that are picked up. They're produced. They're done in North America. They're not picking up shows all the time from foreign markets and just repurposing them. They can only do that so much. So with that said, they make the switch here. What about if these streaming services said, well, you know what? We keep spending money on this hours of content, but we could use them for so much more. For instance, the Peacock thing. What if the fact that Peacock was the sole broadcaster, and then the programming for, let's say NBC Universal did it, right? They put it on NBC and Peacock. What if Monday Night Raw went there or something like that? Or SmackDown went there as well. Something where they could just do it. Where you could have NBC showing, let's put it like this. So there'd be a cable network under the NBC Universal banner, which is USA Network, could continue to go and run Monday Night Raw. And let's say SmackDown, they could move it to NBC on Friday nights. What else do they have on Friday nights, right? NBC Universal could just take it all over. And what they could do is also have the Peacock deal. And, much like how Anthem is a great example of how they have Impact Wrestling, they can go ahead and say, hey, you know what? We're also going to go ahead and we're not going to just pay for the rights. Look at how much we invest in WWE right now. It's not too far for us to, down the line, we're going to make a profit if we spent $6-7 billion on this, and say in 10 years, we're going to make our money back. Plus, we could put much more of our abilities into this, because then you'll have the paid programming, the subscriptions, plus all the advertising dollars you can get from it. Imagine if Peacock, if NBC Universal decided to make the full run, they have the money, they could definitely make that route and invest completely into WWE and have the full pool about what they want to do to be able to go ahead and get that audience bigger and to make that programming better. I'm not going to say if it's right or not, but it's not outside of the scope. So one of the stories I want to bring up real quick, and I want to get into what has been said so far, but I want to make this clear. Now, one website I follow along is awfulannouncing.com. They actually put out a story that was interesting. 5 potential WWE buyers now that Vince McMahon is ready to sell. And Philip Butt wrote the story, and he says now, McMahon's back to take part in negotiating for the next media rights deal and potential sale of the company. And because Vince McMahon has a majority of voting power via Class B stock, even when he was away from WWE, he has to approve a deal or sale. Okay. Now, scroll down. There are 5 potential buyers for WWE. Some companies are likely to get involved. Some aren't. And in no way this is a complete list, but there's 5 entities that have their own reasons to buy WWE, and it's entirely possible that one of these 5 will take it over when it's all said and done. Here's the 5. And they make explanations for them. Comcast, which is the parent company of NBC Universal. The library is already on Peacock. Raw and NXT already on USA. It's just SmackDown they don't have in the United States. Comcast or maybe Fox could buy the entire operation rather than spending billions just for the rights to show the content. And then, for WWE, under the Comcast corporate umbrella, it could result in more opportunities for superstars to branch out into movies, as well as a WWE theme park at Universal Orlando. Many potential avenues of corporate synergy make this an enticing opportunity, right? Remember, think about it like that. What if you did have the WWE Hall of Fame and it was finally instituted over in Orlando? Or what if they have, instead of the Performance Center having all the shows there for NXT, what if they put the shows there in Orlando? Remember, we already had the sound stages for Impact for years, right? Imagine if they did that. Imagine if Universal Orlando was able to put like either theme rides or just a theme section in the park and pull that. Like, honestly, what a great effing idea. And that right there, you can institute that all together and you can definitely make money back on that valuation, on that sale, buying them out. Now, other part is that Disney could be considered, right? It doesn't look like Disney has a TV or streaming presence with WWE, but they do because they have their streaming deals with WWE in Southeast Asia and second-day rights to exclusively show Raw, SmackDown, and NXT for the first month on Hulu, which Disney is a majority owner in the United States. Next is Endeavor. They're the owners of the UFC. It could be making sense for them to sell to Endeavor in terms of stability of WWE as a whole. And Endeavor counts the money at the end of the day. Now, UFC is able to do what they're doing while Endeavor runs this company, and Dana White is continuing to run and charge the company. Mark Shapiro, the president of Endeavor, actually said last October, was quoted as saying that buying WWE would be worth exploring. WWE is a conglomerate with lots of divisions. Comcast and Disney might want to buy because of the synergy possibilities. It makes sense for them to own their own content. There's more to the content, and they will need to keep that in mind. Companies never booked a wrestling show or booked arenas for shows. As we have precedents, current president Anthem owns Impact Wrestling. WCW at one point was owned by Turner Broadcasting, and then they're owned by Turner Time Warner. Let's never forget, this is not a new precedent. It's just WWE has never had that happen to them before. Well, Vince McMahon, his age, and at this point in time, where the current broadcasting market is and where streaming is right now, these big media companies would pay the money, would pay a good fair market price for WWE right now. They would do it. Saudi Arabia is another option. They have their partnership since 2018, and the company has paid $100 million annually to have 2 shows in the country. Think about that. $100 million. So they have the money. Pro wrestling is already a big part of their sports portfolio. Why not just buy it? Now, there's a little chance it can happen, but you can't completely discount because the latest example of the fact that Saudi Arabia is definitely trying to get sports to distract people from their poor human rights record, Live Golf, right? The competitor now to the PGA in golf. And honestly, the other person that can honestly look at buying WWE is The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. Let's explain this here, because this is not just $7. This is the investment end. So here's what we got. So Dwayne Johnson, along with his ex-wife Danny Garcia and Jerry Cardinal, as you know, Danny Garcia was also been part of their $7 production studios, the the media wing that does all the programming that they do for different shows, Redbird Capital. So it's a big, investment firm. They already bought the XSL from Vince McMahon. It's not far-fetched for them to go after WWE as well. Redbird Capital already has interest in various sports ventures, soccer teams, the Fenway Sports Group, which is various areas when it comes to Boston-based sports. Fenway Sports Group deals with the Red Sox, the Penguins, Liverpool, the Liverpool Soccer Club, RFK Wrestling, and the New England Sports Network, a cable channel, and the Yes Channel, which is caters to New York State. They have the money to not only buy the WWE, but they also can include a partner who will treat the company right. So there are 5 buyers, and who knows if there are more. But the thing is, as always, for the broadcast rights to go well, you need to have a couple of competitors. And Vince McMahon right now, and the WWE does not have any shortage of potential people interested in having acquiring the rights to carry the programming. But this is the best time ever. Once in a lifetime, honestly, because I don't think they could do this in 5 years after this. Because the entire landscape of programming will have changed. Okay, by 2029, broadcast TV and cable TV will probably be near antiquated, near irrelevant. By then, I would imagine everything is digital. We will not have cable boxes. We might still have digital programming for all the local channels, but otherwise, people are going to just be able to use the internet for everything and access. And that's all they need. So they're not worried about any of that anymore. No. With that said, what has happened so far? Let's go through the debunking of what people think is going to happen with the company because of the fact that he's back. Is he here for more than just that? Well, let's just read what's actually been read. What has been reported? It's not that hard. I'll take first for the Wall Street Journal. And I'm going to take from WrestleNomics and Brandon Thurston, who really put a great layout of everything that's gone on so far with the company to give a good explanation. I'm not going to just read through everything. We're just going to go through what's important of the story, because I'm sure you've heard other places where they already explained everything and went through it in full detail. I just want to give the context, enough that you need to understand why I don't think we're going to get anything more that Vince is going to deal with when it comes to the rights deals and a potential sale of the company. That's it. Okay. So Wall Street Journal, I'm going to take their story first. He's returned to the company. He's pursuing a possible sale of the business. Okay. In a news release on Friday, said that Vince McMahon has removed Joe Ellen, Lyons Dillon, Jeffrey R. Speed, and Alan M. Wexler from the board of directors. Ignace Lahoud and Manjeet Singh has resigned as board members. So 5 people were taken off. Now, everything was explained that Stephanie McMahon would continue to be co-CEO alongside Nick Khan. He explained just what I talked about, the fact that there's a good chance that Raw and SmackDown are going to be negotiated, and the media landscape is evolving quickly. More companies are looking to own the intellectual property that you use on streaming platforms, making WWE an attractive takeover target. Correct. Intellectual property. And that's exactly the way it is. Because right now, we'll put it like this. Here's even a greater example. Disney owns, everything that's Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, right? They own intellectual property loaded with content. Amazon owns MGM, the entire library, United Artists, all of that. Warner Brothers with Discovery, and Discovery buys Warner Brothers, so they bought everything Warner Brothers, HBO, Showtime, all of that. Bought it all. And the same thing goes for Disney, which bought Fox, which bought Hulu. Basically, is almost the owner of Hulu for the most part, because that's what these companies in streaming are doing since 2020. They all decided to go this route. At the current point right now, WWE is generating a lot of revenue from selling content rights. They posted their first time over $1 billion in revenue in 2021. The company had a market value of just more than $5 billion at Thursday's close. Now, there's a lot of back and forth when it comes to expenses that need to be repaid because of the investigation, the allegations against him and John Laurinaitis, right? But no matter what, he wants in, and he has to be able to go ahead and approve the sale. Any sale that's done. And only he has to be a part of that. That's the whole point of this. Therefore, you got that going for you. Now let's go into what Brandon Thurston talked about what you need to know about what happens. The other thing that happened as well, that was reported on Thursday afternoon, is that Vince McMahon elected himself back to executive chairman of the board, and the two former co-presidents and directors, Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, they're now part of the board of directors. They were former presidents, co-presidents. And just like that. Now, this is the thing I think that comes across with why Michelle Wilson and George Barrios came back. There was a hesitance of having the WWE Network taken off of its own proprietary platform, which was running great, and moving it to Peacock. But for the WWE Network to continue to make money as they were, they still needed to go ahead and, it was the offsetting of the cost, the overhead of the platform itself. So what they did was, okay, the library gets to move over to the Peacock, but the thing is that you're taking away that necessary need of the overhead of continuing to go ahead and support that WWE Network. Because the problem is, at 2014, when they launched it, it was a great idea because everybody had their own platform. But now that we're in the age of streaming where there's all this bundling and all these different subscription services that you got to make out there, the network itself couldn't raise their rates much higher. They kept it at $9.99. They were looking at expanding it. But then when Nick Khan came in and the whole deal came for the broadcasting rights, they changed it. And they said, you know what? We're going to go ahead and, Peacock's going to give us a great deal. And all we got to do is move our stuff over. And we can close the network. The network is still around in some capacities for international markets, but still, Peacock, they're going to take the offsetting of the cost. Take all the content. They needed the content. They were already working with them anyway with programming live. So why not? It was a win-win situation. And that's what they decided to do. And it was smart for them to do that. Very smart. So with that said, now and I think that was the one oversight that was with George Barrios and Michelle Wilson, because of the fact that they didn't look at the bigger picture when it came to what Nick Khan brings to the table. And I think that's really what happened. That Nick Khan really brought a bigger picture because of what he did with CAA, with what he did for them, and really to get Hollywood and to really get these big media companies to really play ball with WWE and really legitimize them. When it comes to their talent, when it comes to their presentation, everything. It gets a bigger deal now. So that's part of it. So, Michelle Wilson, George Barrios, they were the right people for the right time at that moment. But in any case, for this company to continue to be bigger, the bigger ideas, that was Nick Khan, and that's why he's a co-president right now. Co-CEO, period. And Nick Khan proved himself. Because look at the size of the broadcasting deals they got now. That's really where the money is. Nick Khan was responsible for that. Michelle Wilson and George Barrios, I don't think they could have done that. Listen, they did a great job of getting their own platform. But to get these companies to pay them for the programming and pay them top dollar. Because remember, they were complaining, 10 years ago when they had the last broadcasting rights deal, and the fact that, okay, well, USA Network's giving us this much to put it on USA and Sci-Fi, but the truth was, there was more money to be met. And that was the picture that was like, look, NASCAR is making much more than us. All these other sports leagues are making more than us. Vince was probably saying, we need to be making more money. We need to be much more valuable and much more viable to these companies to get more money for the rights. Because even when it comes to AEW, Tony Khan, hopefully, he's going to find his way to get more money for rights outside of the $45 million he makes every year to produce AEW. And all the different ways that he do it. It's all dependent upon what happens to them. But even they will be benefiting because of the fact that if WWE does a really good job with their deal, and I think AEW will get their deal done after WWE gets theirs done first. Because imagine what happens if WWE becomes a sale, and then Tony Khan becomes, the broadcasting rights switch around. There will be suitors out there for AEW. I would imagine that there'll be some suitors out there to want to carry AEW programming outside of Warner Brothers Discovery. And Warner Brothers Discovery will have to ask themselves, is it worth it for us to hold on to this property and give them the money they should get to continue to thrive? Because they performed for us in the first 4 years, or the first 3 years, right? 4 years. So why not? Now, it's a different story because all these other companies outside of WWE are not publicly traded. But they could be. But WWE being a publicly traded company, and their pricing is going up so well, like right now, their pricing is well over $80 a share. And she's been sitting around the 60s and all. It's grown. And for investors, that's great. The valuation's good. The value and the worth of the company is strong. Very strong. For a media company that's continued to succeed while others are not. So Vince McMahon himself put out a press release saying he's taking actions to support a plan to undertake a review of strategic alternatives and capture a unique opportunity to maximize long-term value for all shareholders. Explanation was changed. It was made. We go through all that. He says WWE is entering a critical juncture in its history with the upcoming media rights negotiations, coinciding with increased industry-wide demand for quality content and live events, with more companies seeking to own the intellectual property of their platforms. So whoever's advising him is 150% correct. And the current media landscape, which, by the way, I do a media podcast every week, the Broadcasters Podcast, just celebrated my 5th anniversary. This was all explained now. That point right there, regardless of if he should be doing that or if he should be the one part of the deal or not, or part of the negotiations, is real relevant. But that point right there is that these streaming companies, these big media corporate conglomerates, with their streaming services, they need intellectual property. They're willing to buy it. Not just buy the rights, buy the whole damn thing. And that's the urgency he has here. So he's not back for the creative. The timing doesn't work. But him coming back January 1 to return for the broadcasting rights because they're going to start now? Yes. The timing indicates he's back for the deal. He's back for the negotiations of either the broadcasting rights at a premium or selling the company. And we already heard the word sale a while back. So for this to come into fruition now, there are enough people out there, they're going to be trying to bid to buy. So I don't think the broadcasting rights are going to be the main point. I think what's going to happen at the end of this is WWE is going to be trying to be sold. They're going to try to sell it. And I can see that happening. And honestly, I don't think there's anything they need to do in terms of the company where keeping Stephanie and Nick Khan in their helms and Triple H where he is as head of creative, they're going to figure things out. Listen, the ratings have already gotten stabilized. Their programming has gotten somewhat better. My whole thing is just I want to be able to see that main event picture is shored up because they need to build some new stars. It's the same complaint I had with Vince McMahon before. I just knew what Vince would do to build stars, and somehow he would still build stars anyway. But Triple H doesn't have that track record. All right? To give all these indie stars a chance to build up and be something. Okay, but let's just say this. remember, NXT 2019 was a different bag. And sure, people were watching that show. But that particular roster could not beat EAW head-to-head in their first year. And so what makes you think that 4 years later, they're all going to be back once again, and they have any particular stars that have not been already stars somewhere else? They're going to be the biggest stars possible at the level of the stars that Vince McMahon and the team in WWE has built in their pastime. I haven't gotten an explanation for that. Do we see anything where Ricochet or Dexter Lumis or Johnny Gargano are all going to come something at the end of the day? I think Gunther definitely has an upside. Austin Theory. Do we think, seeing returning stars like the OC or Braun Strowman or Hit Row, do you think anything's going to really pay off and really something big like out of the Phantasma? Do we think anything is going to pay off? Or are they going to become such main event stars? Bringing back Bray Wyatt, do we see it? I haven't seen it yet. They've had 6 months. They've had some time. We should be somewhere right by now, but we're not. And that's going to be the continuous problem I'm going to have going forward. Now, so there will be amendments to the committee's bylaws to ensure that the corporate governance continues to properly enable and support shareholder rights. And then we saw that Vince McMahon was officially put back on the board of directors. There were letters that were written about the board of directors about his request to rejoin, and there was a couple of back and forths. I'm not going to go into those in detail. That's fine. But what I said before about he basically was putting on the line, I'm not going to approve any sale unless I'm part of it. But the thing is, he needs to be a part of it. He should be. These companies want to see Vince in the boardroom. They want to see him in the meetings. He needs to be there. There's not even a question to that. If the company wants to make the deal they're going to make, Nick Khan can do whatever he wants, but you know what? Vince is the guy that created it. He built it. He should be in the room. That's all there is to it. I mean, just the fact that Vince McMahon is back in some capacity. The share price, the investors were all at it. The price got up as high as $89 during the trading day, closing at $84 today. Market capitalization now is $6.5 billion. Just like that, the valuation of the company went up over $1 billion because of Vince. Vince is the end all be all. You don't like that answer, internet wrestling community, but that's just the way it is. And as we're hearing right now, Brandon Thurston makes the point. There are plausible potential buyers of the WWE. Comcast is one, the owners of NBC Universal. Because they already have Raw, NXT, and the WWE Network library content and premium live events on Peacock. And Endeavor is the other one, according to research firm Lightshed. Endeavor, which owns UFC, is also the best fit to buy WWE, because it is. Disney, Netflix, Fox could also be a part. The Saudi investment fund could also have an interest. There's a lot. And then, of course, I talked about Dwayne Johnson, that maybe Redbird Capital could also be a part, but that's also a stretch. There's a lot of people interested. A lot of people interested. This is everything that needs to be considered. Do not play into listen. Forget the noise of, oh, he's coming back to creative. He's going to bury everybody. He's going to feature into everyone. He's going to just screw up the whole product. No. Get rid of the noise. Listen to this. Look for the signal. Clear all the clutter of that noise. The signal is Vince sees the chance to sell this company and make a lot of money on it. Something that he's built over 40 years. His daddy's company. And to be able to sell this company at $6-7 billion and walk away with it? Shit. Why not? The sunset of his career. And he's able to sell this company. Whoever thought the company would be $1 billion company, let alone be publicly traded, let alone be as big as it is today? And it is. to take that off his back, because here's the problem. Right now, WWE is very profitable. But as we know, these wrestling companies can go ahead and fold. Like we saw what happened with Turner Broadcasting and WCW to the point where, if it was Vince doing it alone, and even though he might have the rights deals, if the WWE was still publicly traded and still alone as a company, what if they got to a point where it got bankrupt? Like, the thing is, they need to be able to go and have themselves where they're not going to, they can probably get a little bit bigger than this, but I think it's going to be tough in the current media landscape to be able to go ahead and make the company bigger than it is. Like, I think it's probably at its peak. Maybe there's room for more growth, but right now they're hitting $1 billion a year in revenue. Shit. It's pretty damn good. They're making a lot of money. And by the way, for all of you that were complaining about the fact that, all these people were being let go, well, look what happened. Triple H said, well, we got the money, brought everybody back. He's spending more money on props and stuff. Like, you can see that Triple H is not short of spending money on the shows. And so they're doing just fine. There's just other deals, other things that can be done outside of the expanse. So outside of the broadcasting deals, what else can they do to grow revenue? This is why Comcast, if we've always heard they could possibly buy them, what would be a better idea than for them to have live entertainment that WWE could actually be doing their shows? They could have their themed content in the theme parks, various branding, all this type of marketing, all this other shit. You leave that into the hands of like a Comcast and they have the money to buy it out. Shit. And they'll have that programming and they'll have that consistently new programming all the time. And they could have it where the company can continue to go ahead and thrive and have the same people in charge while that company's doing well, with the company that bought them overseeing them. That might be a great deal at the end of the day. If Comcast were to buy that property, it's nothing new for them. It's just like what Disney would do. It's just like what Warner Bros. Discovery would do. It's just like what Fox might have done or whatever. But we're going to only get down to a couple different media companies that are going to be left. And so they buy it. They're always going to have a home where they're going to be at. Sounds like a win-win to me. I don't see anything there that indicates to me that Vince is going to be in there to take over creative. Let's look at the bigger picture, folks. The bigger picture is the sale. Vince McMahon wants to be ready for the transaction. He wants to be one that helps to broker the deal. If there's a chance at going after something more than broadcast rights, broadcasting rights is just like icing on the cake. But let's get the damn cake. Let's see if this company can be bought. There are buyers. And I think we're going to see a sale at the end of the year. And they won't have to worry about broadcasting rights anymore. That'll be locked in. Imagine that. And like I said, what about the opportunity for the superstars? All these wrestlers, they're going to get chances to do other things. Reality shows. Like we're right now with Barmageddon and the Bella Twins on there, right? And, The Miz has the Miz and Mrs. and, Total Bellas and Total Divas and all this other stuff. Imagine all the other things they could do now. Like they've already worked together for a long time on various projects. How about the movies? There's so many different things they could be doing where they have all this property here to do whatever they want. Imagine that. So it's nothing outside of the scope. I'm going to leave it there. So there you go. I needed to get that off my chest, and I appreciate all of you listening in, especially on the weekend. Hope you enjoy it. Thanks, as always, for listening to another Wrestling Wizard podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. Find past episodes anytime at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe on Apple, Amazon, Spotify, or all major podcast distributors. Follow at King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.